Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar, Family Building Through Egg Donation and Surrogacy, offered by Utah Fertility Center. Today, we have 4 ladies with us. We have Tonya. Hi, Tonya. She's going to talk to us about the overall process from A to Z. Then we have Sarah. Hi, Sarah. Sarah's going to talk about how to choose an egg donor. We have also Catherine. Hi, Catherine. Catherine is going to talk to us about the screening for the gestational carrier and also about the embryo transfer process. And then we have Julian. Hi, Julian. Julian is a former gestational carrier, and she's going to talk to us about her experience as a surrogate. Okay, so I think we are ready. So, Tonya, could you please start? Sorry, just to remind everyone that if you want to write any questions during this webinar, you can use the chat feature and just write your question and we will answer right at the end. Thank you, Tonya.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. I've put together a small PowerPoint, so I'm going to share that with you all. So let me just share my screen here. Can everyone see my screen? Oh, it seems to be all black. Hang on. Oh. There we go. Okay. So Utah Fertility Center is is more than just Utah. So Utah Fertility Center has 6 locations in Utah, 1 in Idaho Falls, Idaho, and we also have a center in Las Vegas, Nevada. Dr. Russell Folk is our founder and our director of this program, and I'm Tanya Canaday, and I'm the director, the supervisor director of the team. Oops. Please. Okay, won't go. There we go. So again, this is where we're located in the beautiful Salt Lake City area, right underneath the mountain, where the mountains are beautiful and the sky is blue. And you can also go to Las Vegas if you'd like to do a medical tourism. If you're from another part of the country, Vegas is certainly a lot of fun. So Dr. Russell Folk has been doing this for 30 years. He is our director here. However, we also have 4 other physicians. We have Dr. Jesse DeRay, Dr. Sean Gercheff, Dr. Deirdre Conway, and Dr. Jason Parker. They're all fantastic. Dr. Folk is the doctor who focuses on third-party reproduction. So what we're talking about here is making families with egg donation and surrogacy. And in order to do this process, it's quite complex, and there is a lot of people that have to be involved. So through all of our Utah, Nevada, and Idaho fertility centers, there's obviously physicians, nurses, there's the embryology team, administration, billing, scheduling, the third-party reproduction team, our gestational care experts, our donor team experts, there's psychologists and attorneys involved. It's a very, very large process, but we do this all the time. So we're going to hold you by the hand and we're going to walk you through this crazy process. So even though it's huge and it can feel a little bit scary, don't be alarmed. We're going to get you through it as a team. So who do we serve? We serve everyone. Anyone who needs a gestational carrier and a surrogate or a egg donor. So that's traditional couples who are unable to use their own eggs or unable to carry the baby themselves. Single women, single men, same-sex females, same-sex males. We help everyone. But obviously their plans look a little bit different. So there's a lot of steps in this process. So step 1, choose a clinic, choose a physician that you trust, that you want to work with. And so with that, you'll meet with someone on our team. We will establish you as a patient and get you on the doctor's schedule. Next step after you're established with the doctor is a sperm plan and collection. So that seems kind of silly. I went through lots of different ways to write this down, but we need to get sperm in the office. And so whether or not that's you coming to one of our offices and collecting sperm, or if that's freezing sperm at the location that you live, and then you come to, we ship it to us through multiple different shipping companies that are available out there. Or maybe you're using donor sperm and you need our help to talk about what happens at those different sperm donation centers that can ship over. There's several different companies we work with that do donor sperm, and so we can help talk you through that process. If you are a person who's going to be using an egg donor and you're bringing out your partner that's going to be collecting sperm, we can sometimes put the two appointments together and check out your uterus, do a uterine evaluation, get you prepping for your embryo transfer as well during that time. So we like to make good use of your time and combine as many things together. So once you're established as a patient, we have our sperm plan put together, then you can begin choosing an egg donor. Sarah's going to go through what that looks like exactly, but we do have an online donor database that you can start choosing donors with. You want to make sure to lean on our teammates like Sarah to help you determine the best egg donor for you. So it's a big decision, and it can feel really overwhelming. So lean on the experts to help guide you through that crazy process. Then you meet with a gestational carrier agency, or maybe you have an independent match. Maybe you have a friend or a family member or a friend of a friend who would love to carry for you. Or maybe you want to work with one of the great gestational carrier agencies out there. There's lots of agencies all across the United States, Canada, and Mexico we work with. And so we can really help you to figure out what's the right way for you to do this. This is a big process. It's really a big deal to ask someone to carry a baby for that long for you. So there's lots of steps that we go through to make sure that everything is exactly as we hope it to be. And some of those ways is we're going to get medical screening on your surrogate, even if she's your sister, even if she's somebody you've never met until this opportunity. We're going to make sure that she medically is as safe as possible for you. As we know, we're talking about biology, and nothing with human biology is perfect or exact, but we want to make sure that we're setting you up with the highest chances of success medically in this process. Everyone's going to have psychological screening. So psychological screening for the surrogate, and if she's married, her spouse, is with them meeting with the specialized person in third-party reproduction. There's also a MMPI or a PAI, depending on that person's expertise, to make sure that whoever carries this baby is emotionally mature enough and in a position socially in all of the right ways to make sure this is a beautiful thing for her and her family, as well as you and your family. And then there's legal clearance. So legal clearance comes in after medical clearance and psychological clearance. Then there is legal clearance. So with legal clearance, there is a contract written up with the intended parent's best interest in mind. Now, remember that the intended parents are not going to put things in contracts that purposely are difficult for a surrogate, but it's really, really important to be super clear about what everyone's intentions are. So legal contracts cover things like social behaviors of a surrogate. So those social behaviors are, is she's married? Is she single? If she's single and she's not in a monogamous relationship, who can she have intercourse with? What about drinking, drugs, certain kinds of foods? All of that is covered in the contract. Another part of the contract covers when, if ever, is termination something that needs to be discussed. Is the baby going to be unhealthy, or is the surrogate's life in jeopardy if she carries this baby to full term? So that's a conversation that's done in that contract being very clear on what those expectations are. And then the last chunk of legal clearance really talks about money. So, how much will she be reimbursed for this process? How much are you going to give her for maternity clothes? What is her lost wages in this process? All of the things to make sure there is no money out of her household in order to make sure to create this beautiful journey for you and your family. So the legal contract is written up to protect everyone, both with your relationship, because it has to be very clear what everyone's expectations are, and also to make sure that everyone is well taken care of financially and emotionally in the process. Once you have medical clearance, psychological clearance, and legal clearance, then we get to plan the embryo transfer. That's obviously a very, very exciting time. There's a really clear process that Catherine's going to describe for you on how that process happens. And then we hold on to you and or your surrogate, whoever is carrying this baby, until the end of the 9th week of pregnancy. At that time, the OB takes over care, and then we just wait to hear from you. We love to see belly bump pictures, and we're so excited when we get pictures of newborn babies with their parents as they are born, whether that be that you are a recipient of a donor egg and you are sending pictures of yourself and your family, or if that's the whole group that created this with you and your partner and the surrogate and her spouse as well. And so that's the steps of the journey. And I just want to say this is a real picture of an embryo that was created here at Utah Fertility Center. And we really strive to make the happiest blastocysts on earth. So now Sarah Herring is going to speak about how do you choose a egg donor? What are the things that are important about egg donation?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Tanya, for your amazing words. We're so grateful for you and what you bring to our office. I'm going to just share my screen here really fast. Give me one moment. Alrighty, so I'm going to talk today about your guide to selecting an egg donor. I've worked here at Utah Fertility Center for the last 5.5 years, and in this time I have worked with hundreds of incredible, brilliant, beautiful young women who are so motivated to give such a beautiful gift of life to another family. And in my personal opinion, I believe that's one of the most beautiful gifts that can be given is life. And so I'm going to just cover a few topics today within this kind of realm of egg donation. Egg donation is the process by which a woman donates her eggs to enable another individual or couple to conceive as part of assisted reproductive treatment. So Tanya briefly mentioned that really we are here to help every family type, whether you are a traditional heterosexual couple, a same-sex male or same-sex female couple, or maybe you are a single parent family. We are excited to help you, and we know this is a unique journey, and that's also the beauty of this process. I wanted to talk on 2 points of the benefits of using an egg donor. Oftentimes when individuals or couples are unable to conceive on their own, they'll look at adoption. And while adoption is a great option for many people, I think it's really important that we hit on using an egg donor and how this can benefit you. So by using an egg donor, you have the potential to be biologically related to your child. So let's say you are a traditional couple and you're, or a same-sex male couple, your husband partner, you can use his sperm and an egg donor's egg to create an embryo. And that's really comforting for people to be able to have that family resemblance, be able to pass down those traits. It's really quite a unique thing. And then the other benefit is the opportunity to be closely involved in the pregnancy, whether you as the female are getting to carry this child, even though different gametes were used to create these embryos, you still have the opportunity to carry. Let's say you're a single male and you have a gestational carrier, you get to, from start to finish, see that process, be very involved, hands-on in appointments, ultrasounds, being able to know, with these legal contracts, knowing that this is a safe environment, that your child is growing and developing in that uterus. And so those are the things that stand out to me, and the benefits of that. I want to talk about the egg donor screening process. This is something that is very important for people to understand. Really, with the HIPAA laws in the United States, we are unable to require an egg donor to provide all of her family medical records. It's not allowed here. And so in order to try to be as thorough as possible, to be honest and transparent with you, we have a very rigorous screening process that we follow. There's a 2-part application that these donors are required to fill out. They then meet with a third-party coordinator who goes through medical history with them, covers all aspects of the application, and goes into those details. From there, they come into our office and complete a follicular ultrasound to look at their fertility, make sure that they have healthy, essentially, egg growth. And then we do blood work to look at a blood test called her anti-Mullerian hormone, which gives us a general idea, again, of her fertility. We do some pre-genetic testing, some infectious disease testing. A huge blood work panel is incorporated in this. This is then followed by a physical exam and medical history review with a nurse practitioner. And then there's a final review and qualification process that's determined by Dr. Folk. So every donor that you see on that database has been approved by Dr. Folk. And then at the very end of this process, we do require these women to complete a psychological evaluation to show that she is mentally and emotionally in a good place in her life to be donating. Now, you'll see on this slide, I have not included an exact criteria of what we would qualify or disqualify for a donor. Obviously, we want to make sure that these women are healthy. So, for example, if a woman applies for our program and her mom, her grandma, her aunt all have been diagnosed with breast cancer, we appreciate her heart and her desire to do this, but she's not going to be a good fit in our database. And we want to make sure generally that she is between the ages of 19 and 32. However, there's different that can kind of vary as well. Same with maybe general BMI standard. We want to make sure she's not using any tobacco products, things like that. So keep in mind that we do a very thorough screening to make sure that she's going to be a healthy, smart option for you, and ultimately safe at the end of the day. So I just want to pull up this slide. Whoop, sorry about that. This slide is going to just give you kind of a glimpse of what our egg donor database looks like when you get your unique login and access. And so we actually have it set up so that you can add filters. Maybe you're looking for a specific quality or trait in a donor. We always recommend, before going through the database and adding in filters, to just look through the entire database as a whole. At any given time, we have around 290 to 300 active egg donors. These women might come and go from time to time due to school schedules, maybe family circumstances, employment opportunities that come up for her. And so this database is always changing. We're always adding new donors on here. So it's good to just go through the database. Do keep in mind that as you add more filters, your options for donors are going to lessen. So if you go through the whole donor database, you're going to have this many donors. And if you add in all of these filters, you might have this amount of donors. It's not saying that we can't find you a donor. We're very optimistic that we will be able to help you, but just do keep that in mind. If the more specific that you get with a donor, it just means that it might take a little bit more time to find someone for you, or it's just going to be a little bit more work, which we are all for. All right, so this is one of my favorite slides I wanted to share. These are childhood photos of some of my favorite retired egg donors that we've worked with over the years. And as I was putting this slide together, I just have memories come back of all my different experiences with these ladies. And it's so beautiful. And just seriously, I love these girls and what they give and offer to our program. You will, if you live out 3 hours outside of our office, have access to their adult age photos as well. So do keep that in mind, that right here, I'm just showing you an example of some childhood photos, but due to donor privacy, we can only release those adult age photos to you if you live 3 hours away from the office. If you live within 3 hours, you're welcome to come into the office and we can give you a look at these photos. So, and if you can see here, we have all different backgrounds here, right? We have different ethnicities. And that's, I think, an important thing to note too, is all different backgrounds, all types of women that we work with. My last slide I wanted to talk about is when you're ready to match with a donor, what is the next step of the process? So there's 3 points I want to hit on, which are to connect, organize, and trust. So with connecting, when you've gone through the donor database, you have questions. Everyone comes into this realm with a different experience. Some people have done every Google search on the planet, YouTubed everything, talked to friends, family. They have a ton of information, where other people, maybe this is the first time you've even talked to anyone. You don't really know where to start. So I would highly recommend getting on a Zoom call or a phone call, or if you're in the office, an in-person meeting. The more we can do over like face-to-face or over a discussion versus email is best. A lot can get stuck over email. And in my experience, I've seen frustration sometimes develop, unnecessary frustration, I should say, because there's just so much back and forth over email. So let's get on a call with you. Let's talk to you, answer your questions, and really help you navigate through this. With organizing, I always recommend to put a list together of your top 5 to 10 favorite donors. Really decide what's important to you. Is it her medical history, her ethnicity, previous donation outcome, availability timeline? What are you willing to kind of negotiate on a little bit more? What doesn't matter to you so much? What are the things that are really, really important to you? And then the last thing here is just trust. Trust the process. UFC, we're here to help support you. Again, we know how overwhelming this can be. And oftentimes when you are in third-party reproduction, there's just so many more emotions because it's not just about you. You're, relying on an egg donor to follow through and to show up to her appointments, do her medications. And that can be kind of scary at times. And so what we want you to know is that these women are amazing. They're wonderful. They're human beings that really just want to make a difference. And we want to help you too. So just trust us and know that in those moments, if you're feeling anxiety, if you're feeling stressed, we are here to help you as best as we possibly can. So that is my presentation for today. I'm going to pass this over to my amazing coworker, Catherine, and she's going to talk about surrogacy. So I'll leave that with her.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that. I also have a screen that I want to share with everyone as we go into this. So as Sarah said, after you go through that process of choosing a donor and getting your embryos made, maybe some of you are going to be the recipient of that embryo, but there are many people who need to have a gestational carrier. And that's when you come over to me. It's up to us to ensure that they are responsible and medically sound. And these intending parents could be working with this carrier anywhere from 1 to 3 years, depending on how quickly they have success, or if they want to return for a sibling journey. So it's very important that these two parties have a great connection and have a really good working relationship. So we can get a sense of these gestational carriers' personality on our first phone call with them. Usually I get them through the agency, as Tanya was saying, the surrogate agencies. And first, I like to have the carriers tell me a little bit about themselves. And this gives me a sense of who they are and how they see themselves and what is important to them in their life. Secondly, I like to ask them how they decided to become a gestational carrier. And from that question, I get some really great stories, anywhere from them having a really hard time becoming pregnant themselves, perhaps going through IVF with their partner, which then resulted in them wanting to be able to help another couple in the same boat. Or I have carriers that I felt like they feel like they had all the children that they and their spouse wanted, but they weren't quite finished feeling like they wanted to stop having babies. So they've looked into being able to carry for another person. And And when they come to us, that is when we find out if medically they are able to do that. So that's when we go into our screening process. When we receive their information from the agency, they give us all of their medical and hospital records. We have a nurse practitioner, Shaylee, who spends many hours evaluating the carrier's medical records. And then she puts that into a brief synopsis for us. The things that are most important to her as she's looking through those records are pregnancy concerns, any complications they might have had, or any risks for future pregnancies. Have they had recurrent pregnancy loss? Did they go through gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, cholestasis, preterm labor? Did they have an early delivery? All of these things are things that she is looking at. She looks at how many pregnancies they've had and what type of deliveries, along with did they have any miscarriages or abortions along the way? And then we look at significant medical and surgical history, other risk factors too, like cancer or abuse. And then two things that they have to have are medical and psychiatric clearance. An OB, when they come to us, has to sign off that they are ready to be a carrier, that there are no contraindications for her moving forward with a pregnancy. And then, as Tanya mentioned, they do a psychiatric evaluation. And in that, it gives some personal history about them, the carrier's motivation for becoming a surrogate, how good of a support system that she has, any past need for psychotherapy herself and why. It evaluates her coping skills moving through this process. And then if the therapist finds them capable, she will recommend them to us for surrogacy. So most importantly, with this screening process, we are here to ensure that our carriers are medically sound and that their bodies are ready and capable of carrying a healthy child. So the second step in that process is a medical and social interview that I will do with them over the phone. I find out what medication she's taking, what allergies she might have, how much alcohol does she currently drink, if she's had any current or past nicotine use. We inquire on a number of medical conditions to ensure that she has no risk factors. And then we'll learn her current relationship status. I also pay attention to medications, if they're listed, what allergies she might have to medications, her body mass index, what birth control she has used in the past, and her blood type. All of these things are very important moving forward so that we know which and how much of the medications that we will be using can be prescribed while she's a patient of ours. And then let me move to the next screen. And then after we go through that, if everything looks good, we want to get eyes on her ourselves. So we will bring that carrier to Utah. Usually they come into our Midvale office because that's closest to the airport, and we will do a full head-to-toe physical. In doing that, we will see up close and personal if she has any high-risk behavior. While she's here, they'll do a lab draw and a urine sample where they test for pregnancy hormones like your prolactin and your thyroid levels. We'll make sure that she's immune to rubella and varicella, which can be extremely dangerous in pregnancy. And we do a complete drug screen panel. They'll also do a water ultrasound while they're here. That pushes water into the uterus while doing an ultrasound so that we get a very good look at the lining of this carrier's uterus to make sure that it's clear and smooth and healthy and ready for that embryo transfer. And then if everything is normal, we will get those results back from that screening within 1 to 2 weeks. And then the carrier and the intending parents at that point will move on to that legal phase that Tanya was talking about. So after they go through all of that, they will come back to us and say they're ready for their transfer. I will plan a transfer date with them, and we will get a calendar, as you can see in this picture. It's very colorful. Each color will give the carrier instructions on when to stop and start medications, when she will need to go into the clinic for a lab draw or an ultrasound, when her transfer date is, and when she has her pregnancy test. Like Tanya said, there can be so many different steps in this process, but we are here to hold your hand through every part of it. And it's no different for the carriers. We do a very detailed plan of care with them where we will talk through every day of this calendar, and we give them videos and talk to them about the injections and things that they will be doing, so that it makes it very easy for them to move through all of this. We care for our carriers through 10 weeks of pregnancy. They'll have a couple more ultrasounds after we get their pregnancy test back, just to make sure that that baby is growing well, and what we like to see. And then we will turn them over at 10 weeks to their local obstetrician. They graduate from us at that point. I really loved the simplicity of a statement that Dr. Vogt said recently. He said, "We come to work every day to create families. That's what we do." And I love these carriers. I like to refer to them as rock stars, because that is just what they are to me. They're amazing humans that are willing to do this for other people. Without them, many of these families that Dr. Vogt is talking about could not have been made. And so I would like to turn the time over to one of these amazing rock stars. Jillian Marks is one of our coordinators here and also was a gestational carrier herself. Take it away, Jillian.
Hey, thanks, Catherine. Hey, you guys. So I'm currently a coordinator at Utah Fertility Center. So I work with recipient families who are using donor eggs and gestational carriers and a little bit of everything. So it's been about 6 years ago, I used to be a documentary photographer, and I had the opportunity to photograph a birth story for a family who was using a gestational carrier. The gestational carrier was here in Utah, and the family, they were international. So I hadn't had a chance to meet the parents yet until the day of the birth. And the gestational carrier and I had just talked a little bit, but I walked into the delivery room that day and my life changed. It was honestly one of the most beautiful stories I had ever seen, to watch these two people who had tried for years and years to have a baby and moved mountains to make that baby get here, and then see their joy when they finally met him. It was awesome. So after that day, I started talking with that gestational carrier a little bit more about, like, how did you find out about this? Like, what made you want to do this? And she pointed me in the direction of, there's some Facebook groups online. She's like, you should start looking at these things and you can find some good information. Because honestly, I was like, well, this sounds like a cool thing, but I don't know what the requirements are. I don't know if I'd even qualify. I don't know much about it at all. So these Facebook groups were awesome. And I followed them for months, just kind of researching, seeing other people's stories, learning about like agencies versus independent matches. And after I found out, like, I felt like I had like a good base knowledge. She put me in touch with Utah Fertility Center, and Tanya was actually my coordinator. So I met with her and did the whole process of what they're talking about, the gestational carrier interview. I did the medical screening, all of those things. And then I decided I wanted to do an independent journey. I felt comfortable making the appointments and things like that. And so I talked to Tanya and was like, do you have any family that you think I would get like mesh well with? And she knew my personality at the time and the things that were important to me. And she's like, I've got the perfect couple I want you to meet. So it was kind of like matchmaking, I felt like. So she gave me their phone numbers and we started texting, and we met up at a restaurant downtown and had lunch. And after that, like, we hit it off immediately. And I knew we would become really good friends at that point. So I walked out in the parking lot and looked at my husband. And I was like, yep, I want to grow their babies. So it wasn't long after that like we started texting and making a plan for how to actually move forward with this. They had already had embryos created here at Utah Fertility Center. So it was kind of the legal point at that time, because I had already been medically cleared. So legal, we each had our own attorney, and they specialize in third-party reproduction. Because, like, honestly, like, I wouldn't have even known what to put in a contract. They're so in depth on what is covered in there, what you can eat, what you can't eat, where you can travel to, when you can travel, how far from hospitals you can go, things like that, and just expectations like during the pregnancy, after the pregnancy, things like that. So once legal was completed, we scheduled a transfer. I learned all about the medications. I thought I had a fear of needles. I'm over that now. Being a gestational carrier will get you there. So that was fun. I've got some pictures I want to share too. That would be fun. So give me just a second. Okay. So this is me and my intending parents. This is Jeff and Bryce on the day of our transfer. So my husband's taking the picture. Cute little ultrasonographer over here, and we decided we were going to transfer 2 embryos. So each of them is biologically related to one of the babies, and they used an egg donor. So it was awesome. So we're all feeling super hopeful here, and all of the nerves. That 10-week wait after the embryo transfer, that's typically when you'll come in and have a pregnancy test. And I think that was the longest 10 days of my life, is like fingers crossed, hoping that this worked. So this is one of the medications. This was the first day, and the first day I was giving myself an injection, and I was just trying to get past like that mental block of like, okay, I can give myself an injection. But honestly, after the first one, it becomes second nature and wasn't bad. So 7 weeks is when you come in for an ultrasound, and we knew at this point like the pregnancy tests were positive, but we didn't know if both embryos had taken. So 7 weeks we came in, and you can see both of them are there. So the twins both took. That's just one of the pictures from pregnancy. So I carried twins. This was at 25 weeks. We would send pictures back and forth, so they'd get like their weekly update picture of the bump and everything, and that was kind of fun. So since it was twins, we knew going into it, like they had counseled us very much on like the risks involved, like sometimes twins come early, things like that. So we made it to 35 weeks, which is great for twins. Water broke at 4 o'clock in the morning, just super surprised, and calling them that morning. It was like, I pictured like how I thought this phone call was going to go, but it's also like quite the surreal experience calling somebody and being like, are you ready to meet your babies? So we all live in Utah, so that was nice. So I called them. They actually beat me to the hospital, which was surprising, but that was fun. So I walked in and they were super excited. This is my husband, and this is, we used a doula as well to kind of help with like labor support. So this is our doula at the time, and they were there for the whole thing. We took pregnancy classes together throughout, which was quite the experience. So they were very hands-on, learned all of the things about childbirth, and were there with the babies when they were born. So this is one of their twins, and their feet right after they were born. This is when I got to go to the NICU to meet them for the first time. Delivery. So because it was twins, they had you deliver in an operating room, which kind of made for a different experience. I had never delivered in an operating room before, but they did let the parents in. And that's one of the things that we talked about in matching as well. Like, do you want to be there when your babies are born? Would you prefer to wait out in the hallway? Like, how do you want that to go? And we had determined like they wanted to be as involved as possible, and I was completely comfortable with that. So they were there in the room when the babies were born. So this is their babies' grandpas. And honestly, that is not only like seeing them become parents, but also watching my friend, like they become 2 of my best friends by this point, but also watching their families become grandmas and grandpas and their aunts and things like that. Just, it makes me cry thinking about it, to be honest. So you can see these are the grandpas meeting their babies or their grandbabies for the first time as well. This was the first time I got to hold them. And then this is our family. So these are my 2 kids. Max, my son, he was 4 years old at the time, which made for a very fun experience because we were very matter of fact, like when talking to them, like, I'm pregnant, but they're not our babies. So they're not going to be like your brother or sister. And they met Jeff and Bryce, and I was like, it's Jeff and Bryce. Like, they don't have a uterus, so I'm going to help grow their babies. So he was in preschool at the time. And a funny story that happened is like, I went to pick him up one day and this cute little preschool teacher, she's probably like 70 years old. She kind of pulled me aside and she's like, Julie, I need to talk to you. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah. And she's like, well, Max told me that you're having twins. And I was like, yeah, I am. He's like, can you tell me more about what's going on there? And I was like, oh yeah. And she's like, well, Max came in and said, Jeff and Bryce don't have a uterus, so you're having their babies. And so it was really interesting to explain, like, to somebody who didn't understand like IVF and fertility and being a gestational carrier, and explaining the process to different people about how it works, but also hearing it come like just so matter of fact from a 4-year-old of like, well, yeah, Jeff and Bryce don't have a uterus, so my mom's going to help them. They're their babies, but just being so cute about the whole thing. I loved it. We'd go to grocery stores, and when somebody would comment on the pregnancy, it's like, oh, it's not our baby, so it's Jeff and Bryce's. So a lot of people have asked me, like, how did your kids handle it? And honestly, like they handled like no issue whatsoever. They knew what it was about, why I was doing it, and they love Jeff and Bryce as well. So they thought it was awesome, and they still have a relationship with them, which is fun. So this was them. I took pictures of them after they were born because I did photography. So that was a fun excuse to get to see them, like, come over and have newborn pictures. So this was when they were a few weeks old. And then we got together regularly after they were born. And so this was just visiting. That's us now. So the twins now are 4.5 years old. When they were I want to say they were about 4 months old, I decided, like, my time as a gestational carrier is over. Like I wasn't going to pursue that any further, but I also loved being in this world. And I found so much joy in helping build a family that I decided I was going to go to nursing school with the desire to work in fertility nursing. I knew this is where I wanted to go. I was so passionate about it. So I started nursing school when they were a few months old. And after graduating, I came to work as a third-party coordinator at Utah Fertility Center, just because it was such a positive experience and it changed my life. So that's how I ended up here. This was them on their first birthday. And then those are my kids, and then the twins. I will stop sharing now. So that's everything that I have.
Thank you, Julian, for that amazing story. That's awesome, and thank you, Tonya, Catherine, and Sarah, also for all the helpful information that that you gave us. Right, I just like to check if you have any questions coming through. We have actually 2 or 3, so let me just see. Okay, so is there a specific age range for egg donor? For an egg donor to become a candidate for the program? So that would be for Sarah, I guess, right? Sarah?
Hi, thanks, Juan. I think that this age topic is really important to discuss. I think it's kind of a myth in this world that you have to have a really young egg donor between 19 and 22 or 23 to be able to have success. And in my experience and what I've seen, that is not correct. I've actually worked with many donors over the years who are 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, who have amazing outcomes. Healthy babies are born. And so just know that if you are interested in a donor who is in that age range, early 30s, she's on the database for a reason, probably either because she does have successful outcomes. We are monitoring her fertility really closely. So if there was a concern with that, we're making sure that she is responding well to the medications and things of that nature. So again, I think it's an honest concern question, just because kind of in this world, as things age and grow, sometimes quality changes. But as I said, wonderful, wonderful women regardless. So we typically take them off the database completely when they start reaching mid-30s. That's usually when egg quality changes. But before then, a 32-year-old donor could have just as great of an egg donor cycle as a 22-year-old. So great question.
Great, thanks, Sarah. Another question. What advice can you give to people who are starting their journey? So I guess that would for Tonya, please.
That's a really good question. This process is complex and it's scary. It's emotional, it's financial, it's time intensive. It is really can be super overwhelming for people. I think that the advice I would give you is don't expect this process to be easy. Some people will be like, oh, I've got an egg donor, so I'm guaranteed to get a baby quickly, or I've got a donor and a surrogate, so no matter what, it's going to be easy because everything is lined up perfectly. And yes, everything is lined up perfectly, but this is biology. So don't expect it to be easy, but do expect it to be worth it.
Excellent. Thank you, Tonya. Another question. If a gestational carrier is outside Utah, how many times does she need to travel to Utah for the treatment or for the cycle? So I guess that's Catherine. Can you answer that?
That's me. Thank you, Juan. The gestational carriers will only come to Utah twice. The first time is for that medical screening. We say that they are able to bring someone 18 years or older for both of the times that they come, so they don't have to do it alone. The first time that they come for the medical screening, it's actually very brief. They're only in our office for less than an hour and a half. So they can actually fly in and fly out on the same day. And many people do that. If they need to if they're coming from back east and you know, airlines are complicated, they can stay over one night and then fly out the next day afterwards. So that one's very simple. The next time that they'll come in is for their embryo transfer. And we definitely want them in the evening before that transfer. They'll be here for the day of the transfer. Again, they can bring a companion, which we actually want them to have. They'll be taking a Valium for that transfer, which kind of might get them a little bit, you know, tired and loopy. So having someone with them is really nice. But then they do, after their embryo transfer, we have what we call their princess days, where they get to be treated like a princess, and everybody gets to do everything for them for the next 2 days, while they just rest and let that embryo, you know, settle in. So that's just twice, only 2 times to Utah.
Great. Thanks, Catherine. Okay, and one last question because we're running out of time. So this question is for Julian. How did you feel as a gestational carrier when the intended parents, or when the patients, when the parents that you carried for, when they left with their babies? How did you feel?
This was a question I actually got asked quite a bit during the pregnancy, is like, how do you feel like you're going to feel when like they actually take the babies home? And I felt like I would be okay, like, but you always kind of wonder, like, well, I haven't been in that situation, I don't know. But honestly, like when they were able to go home with their babies, it was like, it was so much excitement for me. I knew my job was done. They were home with their people where they were supposed to be, and it brought me so much joy. So afterwards, they would send me text updates and stuff like that, and it made me happy. So I didn't have like any sadness or grief or anything like that. It was just joy and like, job well done is kind of how I felt about it.
Excellent. Thank you, Julian. Okay, so we run out of time. So any other questions that come through, we will be answering them. Since you registered for the webinar, we will be reaching out to all of you just to follow up, just to check if you need any additional information. Thank you very much, ladies. Thank you for joining this webinar. I hope the webinar was helpful for everyone, and we will hear from you very soon. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Juan. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.